Yes, dude. It's because I'm racist. That's why. It's because I'm racist, dude.
Every black voter in this country needs to listen to this.
Hello, I'm Father LaTony. This video uses the mind crisis framework to analyze political discourse. The mind crisis framework claims that modern society is trapped in unhealthy and irrational social and emotional patterns. I use the representation of a Hydra with many heads to help visualize a unity of the tangled mess of these patterns. Today we're exploring a claim that a political operative's blatant lie is exactly the same as college professors accusing others of racism. This claim was made by Emily Jashinsky, a conservative journalist on the political news show Breaking Points. I will argue against Jashinsky's claim. I'm going to start with a clip of Scott Jennings' podcast as it appeared on Breaking Points. Jennings is a MAGA Republican operative who regularly appears on CNN panels. He's going to mention in passing Abdul El-Sayed, Michigan's Democratic nominee for the Senate. Jennings is going to blatantly lie about Hassan Piker, a popular left-wing Twitch streamer who has endorsed El-Sayed. Jennings and his team have taken out-of-context clips to make it seem like Piker is proudly proclaiming himself to be a racist and calling for the return of lynchings. Jennings will lie that as a result of the rise of figures such as El-Sayed and Piker, that Democratic leaders might adopt a plan of returning the country to lynchings. The green Hydra head will pop up during this clip to draw your attention to an affect of contempt. In the mind crisis framework, there is a spectrum of affects associated with each head. The green head is representative of a spectrum of contempt. While Jennings is operating from a place of straightforward contempt, he is knowingly lying to his audience and looks down at them. Piker is also operating from a milder form of contempt, smugness. Piker does not respect the woke policing or disingenuous trolling that he is responding to, and as a result, he is responding with mockery.
On top of these candidates, in their own words, their surrogates are just as bad. Even worse,
Surrogates.
actually.
Surrogate.
We continue today our exploration of the radical socialist streamer, Hassan Piker. Now, he's Abdul El-Sayed's best friend, and he campaigns for him all the time. And African Americans out there, within the sound of my voice, need to listen up, and you must listen carefully. This is who socialists like Abdul El-Sayed choose to keep for company. Just listen to this. Hassan Piker in Cut 8.
I don't give a what black people care about. Oh, black people care about this. Black people care about that. Like, shut the up. That's not how politics works. Oh, well, Hassan, how dare you? Like it or not, black people care about this issue. It's like, it's such a stupid stance. Any other black folk want to engage in radical activist language in this chat? Suck my Yes, dude. It's because I'm racist. That's why. It's because I'm racist, dude. Go back to a better time when lynchings were happening. This is what I like as a black man. Are you always doing too much with black people? Leave them alone. I want to go back to lynching. Like, I get it, but relax. Man, shut the up, okay? You got me, okay? You got me because I'm a racist person.
You just heard campaigns all the time for Abdul El-Sayed in Michigan. He campaigns for other Democrats around the country. Every black voter in this country needs to listen to this. And if you look at these Democratic primaries, black voters have been voting against the socialists, only to be overruled in many cases by young, privileged white commies. Might these black voters find a home in the Republican Party this fall? Well, if Democratic campaigns are adopting the Piker plan of returning our country to lynchings, that just might happen.
Okay.
Some of the Breaking Points hosts are laughing because what Jennings says sounds ridiculous. He's blatantly and absurdly lying. There is no Piker plan of returning to lynchings. It sounds stupid, and it is stupid. And it's a reminder that human beings don't need AI to make slop. In fact, political operatives like Jennings have been grooming their audiences for decades to not only get used to slop, but to need slop. Scott Jennings doesn't have to make a well-reasoned case to his audience because they are not there to be informed. Jennings' audience tunes into his and other similar programs to stave off cognitive dissonance, the uncomfortable feeling of holding contradictory beliefs and engaging in contradictory actions. For over half a century, A number of right-wing business leaders in the United States have funded increasingly organized and effective psychological operations to cultivate a widespread dependency on paranoid narratives. They have primarily, though not exclusively, attacked the minds of right-wing audiences. Paranoid individuals are confused about psychological boundaries. They are confused about what can be attributed to themselves and what can be attributed to the outside world. This confusion agitates them and causes cognitive dissonance. In turn, paranoid narratives can help resolve that cognitive dissonance temporarily by triggering internal emotional states. Those internal emotional states are experienced as information from the outside world. Every time we accept bad arguments and false information for the sake of group cohesion, we increase our own confusion about psychological boundaries, and we add cognitive costs to walking back ridiculous and immoral positions. This dynamic is present all over our society, and Republicans in particular have been thoroughly trained to bypass their reasoning and learning and instead rely on internal emotional states to guide them through political discourse. Republicans must regularly accept fantasy narratives to stave off the uncomfortable experience of cognitive dissonance. Because of the advanced stage of reality collapse that they are in, failing to stave off cognitive dissonance would result in, for many of them, particularly older Republicans, months of knowledge collapse and insecurity. That is the cognitive and emotional cost ideologically committed Republicans would have to absorb to put aside their hyper-real or fantasy framework of understanding. Jennings and others like him don't have to have sophisticated psychological insights or a high-level talent for manipulation. The most talented propagandists do have a sense for this kind of stuff, but at this point in history, the right-wing American mind has been groomed for so long that it perpetually is in need of narratives to stave off cognitive dissonance. The coherency of these narratives is not as important now as their quantity, so the standards are low and dropping, and the hunger for narratives is always increasing. This allows for very low-level talents to find success, sometimes by accident, simply by feeding this hunger. Republican operatives can experiment and throw all kinds of things at the wall, and eventually something will stick. They won't necessarily convince audiences that there's a far-left movement interested in bringing back lynchings, but they don't have to. But also, they might. That's not off the table. The right is at the vanguard of American society's paranoid lurch, but there are converging paranoid flows on the left, in the center, and among the apolitical. This also isn't unique to the United States, but that is beyond the scope of this video. Now, let's hear the Breaking Point's hosts' reactions to Jennings. 3 of them are on the political left: a main host, Crystal Ball, a journalist, Ryan Grimm, and the show's executive producer, Griffin Davis. The 4th host, the journalist Emily Jashinsky, is a conservative. The yellow Hydra head will pop up during this clip to draw your attention to an affect of complacency.
First of all, what Hassan was doing in those clips is technically anti-woke, right? It's dark woke. It's him making fun of people who are being ridiculous and policing things that he's said. And now Hassan Piker, as I'm sure you have this, Griffin, is in litigation for defamation because they were too stupid to actually do the legwork of figuring out what he really does on his show.
I don't think they're too stupid. I think they don't give a shit.
To me, Jennings is making a factual claim here.
He does at the end. He makes a factual claim about lynchings.
He's making a factual assertion that is factually untrue, and it is demonstrably untrue. And Jennings either knows or with a tiny bit of diligence would have known that it was untrue, which makes it malicious, which is the standard for defamation. I hate defamation cases because people overuse them to restrict people's ability to have speech, debate, and argue.
Right.
But there also needs to be some check on lying about on affirmatively lying about people in such a dangerous way. So yeah, I hope he does go forward with this, and Jennings has to like think about and people in
Exactly.
in the future have to say, because we're in this space, and Hassan has made this point that we have two standards for what's allowable in conversation. If you are supportive of Israel in general, you can say whatever you want about people who are critics of Israel. Doesn't have to be true, can be completely blatantly false. And that is the norm that is allowed within our current media structure. That's changing. And as it changes, like this could be one of the things that forces a change.
This is why Griffin's opening joke about woke Scott Jennings is a really good one, because Scott Jennings would have complained for years about people on college campuses, like professors on college campuses, people with some legitimate power, saying whatever the hell they want to say about accusing others of racism or whatever it is. And that's a really serious accusation. And the reason, then he's like flipping around and doing the exact same thing, and in a way that is so cynical.
Emily Jashinsky says Scott Jennings blatantly lying about a plan to bring back lynchings is the exact same thing as college professors accusing others of racism. They are not exactly the same thing. They are extremely different things. Scott Jennings is either knowingly lying, or he has knowingly empowered people on his team to feed him lies for the purpose of constructing slop to feed and manipulate his audience, who he holds in contempt. Woke college professors overwhelmingly are teaching their students about a phenomenon that they not only genuinely believe is real, but that they have strong and abundant evidence is real. But when anti-racist academics and activists speak to people outside of their bubble about racism, they are using an academic or activist definition that is causing confusion. They may be annoyed or resentful or bitter about what they see as widespread denial of a real phenomenon. They may speak disrespectfully as a result and do a bad job explaining what they mean to others. But it is a fundamentally different phenomenon than Jennings and his staff cooking up slop to feed their very hungry audience. The accusation of professors on college campuses accusing others of racism is very vague. It is not about a particular bad faith actor knowingly or indifferently lying to their students. So this is sloppy. My first instinct in the mind crisis framework would be to associate sloppiness with a paranoid pattern. But in Jashinsky's case, although her suspicion of college professors is involved, suspicion being a low rung on the spectrum of paranoia, I believe it is her complacency that is most at fault for this sloppiness. I believe Jashinsky has never made a serious effort to understand what so-called woke professors and activists mean by racism. And to be fair to Jashinsky, anti-racist academics and activists are not typically effective communicators of their ideas to people outside of their bubbles. Jashinsky has likely been too content and self-satisfied with her understanding of racism to consider the possibility that she might really be deeply ignorant about what it is these woke college professors are saying. So now let's clarify what woke anti-racist college professors overwhelmingly mean by racism. Academic definitions of racism focus on systematic and institutional racial oppression and marginalization. Actual academic definitions are often more elaborate than this, but for easy comparison's sake, we'll limit this definition of racism to just that: systematic and institutional racial oppression and marginalization. But outside of academia and anti-racist activists, the word racism has two far more common definitions. The most common way racism is defined in practice is any racial prejudice or intolerance. Also common is the classic definition of racism, which focuses on racial beliefs. For example, beliefs in racial differences determining individual and group outcomes, but in particular, beliefs that one race is superior and has a right to dominate, or that a race is inferior and should be dominated. Critically, both common definitions center individual beliefs and actions, and the academic definition centers social habits and institutional practices. When Jennings says there is a Piker plan to bring back lynchings, he's just lying, or he's repeating a lie his team is empowered to pass on to him. When college professors claim someone or something is racist, they're often claiming that some action or policy contributes to habitual or institutionalized racial oppression or marginalization. This is not a claim about what someone or some group believes. It's not a claim that someone believes they are racially superior or that someone wants to hurt a racial group. That certain policies predictably disadvantage one race or predictably advantage another is borne out by statistical evidence and does not require making claims about what voters or bureaucrats or any other individuals believe. These woke, anti-racist college professors are using a definition of racism that people like Jashinsky are either unfamiliar with or outright reject. And then those people like Jashinsky either ignorantly or disingenuously interpret those college professors' comments using their preferred definitions, which are also by far the more common definitions. And using those common definitions, the claim that someone or something is racist becomes a claim about what that person believes and what that person is motivated to do. If that is what you think college professors are claiming, then there is at least a comparison to be made to Jennings' lie, though it's still not exactly the same thing. But that's not, in the great majority of cases, what college professors are claiming. Of course, there are always outliers, but Jashinsky did not compare Jennings' extravagant lie to a particular outlier of a college professor spreading his own outrageous lie. She made a general accusation, and her accusation is false. Actually, her accusation that college professors are doing the exact same thing as Jennings blatantly lying could itself more fairly be compared to Jennings' lie. But it's also not exactly the same thing as Jennings' lie. Using the mind crisis framework, we would say Jennings was operating as an agent of contempt, feeding a hungry audience paranoid narratives, whereas Jashinsky appears to be operating as an agent of complacency, reassuring herself and her audience with a comforting assumption, specifically that they don't have to learn anything new about racism, and especially that those annoying or mean or woke people talking about how everything is racist definitely don't have anything to teach them. And when anti-racist academics or activists insist on inflexibly using special definitions of common words, despite it clearly confusing most people outside of their bubbles, they are operating as agents of resentment, signaling their solidarity with those they believe have been wronged, as well as signaling their annoyance with people who fail to use their special definitions. All of us wear all of these heads sometimes. Every Hydra head in the mind crisis framework represents a spectrum of affects, ranging from healthy and adaptive on one end to extreme and self-destructive on the other. It's not wrong to be skeptical. It's not wrong to be confident. It's not wrong to be frustrated. And it's not wrong to feel content. The problem is that as a society, we are trapped in a tangle of unhealthy and irrational social and emotional patterns, and we are all being encouraged to take on more and more extreme and self-destructive forms of these patterns by well-funded psychological operations. In Jashinsky's case, her complacency has been encouraged, as it has been encouraged in all of us, to preempt her from understanding woke arguments. The goal is to keep us distracted and divided and conquered. But that goal is not inevitable, and there is so much more to say about how to identify what's going on, protect ourselves, and fight back. Until then, I wish us all wisdom, love, and understanding.